Have you noticed how the busyness of mum life seems to be hitting harder lately? The same things that you've been juggling for years suddenly feel really exhausting, overwhelming, just plain hard. Well, you're not alone in this. It happens to most women in their 40s and 50s, which I think is the busiest phase of our lives. Now, it's probably the hormone changes of perimenopause at play. Just going to say that straight up front. But some common myths or misconceptions about perimenopause might be keeping you confused about whether you're in perimenopause or not and whether that's the problem. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So make sure you stay tuned to the end because I'm going to share a free tool to help you figure out if perimenopause is behind how you're feeling so you can start taking back your energy, your mood, and feeling comfortable and confident and in sync with your body again, because it can feel really discombobulating this time of life, like you're in someone else's body, like Jamie Lee Curtis in that movie where she switches bodies with her daughter. That can be kind of what it feels like in perimenopause. But if you've been told it's not perimenopause, it can be really confusing. Before we dive into that, hi, I'm Sarah, the perimenopause naturopath, and I've helped hundreds of women over 40 navigate perimenopause with confidence, feel great in their bodies, and reclaim their mood and energy using what they eat, drink, and do to make the difference. So if you're over 40 and feeling like your changing hormones are hijacking your mood, energy, and weight, and you want to change that in a holistic way, then this is the place for you. Each episode, I share my views on what's happening in your body, why you're feeling the way you are, and how you can change that with actionable advice to help you move from chaos to calm and feel so much more comfortable in your body. Welcome to episode 77 of Chaos to Calm. Today, we are tackling that big question. Is it perimenopause behind how you're feeling? Now, you might be thinking, no way, I'm way too young for perimenopause. Maybe you're thinking, oh, well, my periods are still regular, so it can't be that because perimenopause and menopause is all about no periods, right? These are really common misconceptions that hold women back from finding answers and feeling better, and may even get said to you by your doctor if you go and ask them or say, I've been having these symptoms or I'm feeling not quite right. I'm in my 40s or my early 50s. Is it perimenopause? So, in this episode, we're going to unpack some of those myths and I'll help you figure out what's really going on with your body. Is it perimenopause? But first, let's talk about why I think this topic matters so much. Now, lots of women that I work with have been told by doctors, friends, or even their own inner voice that feeling this way is just kind of normal because we're busy mums. But here's the reality, what I think is the reality. If you're feeling more tired, moody, and out of sync than you used to, it's not just about being busy or being stressed. I think that's such a cop out, or getting older as well. It could be your hormones and specifically perimenopause, and you can do something about it. You don't have to resign yourself to it. And I want to dive straight into the first myth because I just listened to some research and it is like confirmed what I've been saying for ages. So I'm feeling really passionate and excited about sharing that information with you. So the first myth that I want to talk about is I'm too young for perimenopause because lots of people think perimenopause doesn't start till your late 40s or 50s. And I think because we think menopause, it's like, that's it. I forget about this time of perimenopause, although it is being talked about a lot more lately. And I have been here myself at 42. My health was really poor. I was really struggling with mood swings. I was irritated, impatient, angry, and I had gained a lot of weight, even though I wasn't doing anything different. But that had happened. So even though I had hormone blood tests done, the whole thyroid tested, iron levels, all the common causes of why I was feeling super tired as well. And even though my hormone blood tests came back low, like my estrogen was really low and in that sort of menopausal range, I was told I was too young for perimenopause and I was still breastfeeding. So my doctor was like, well, it's not perimenopause. It couldn't be perimenopause. So I just got left feeling really frustrated by the lack of answers. I didn't have any answers and nothing actually to do. So I had to go figure that out myself, which is lucky for all of us, isn't it? Because here I am today. That's what spurred me to become the perimenopause naturopath and start talking more about this phase of life, because our culture often equates menopause with being old. And we put up with feeling old because we think, oh, well, I'm in my 40s or 50s. And this is the research I was just listening to, is that how long we live, or will live 7.5 years longer if we have a great attitude about aging and we don't see it as like the end, and just resign ourselves to feeling crappy and that aging, menopause, being older is associated with disease. And like, you think about all the advertising, all the things that we see in society that all tell us that we're getting older and aging is about breaking down, disease, dysfunction, pain, suffering. But I want you to know that doesn't have to be the case. So that's what's really important about understanding, is it perimenopause for you? Because you've got the opportunity to change and influence how you age and how you feel as you get older. And perimenopause is a key time to do this because there is so much change in our body. So yes, our culture often equates menopause with being old and also irrelevant and past our purpose and all of those things. So if we're even thinking about the journey leading up to it with perimenopause, we're kind of in the back of our mind subconsciously, we're hoping that's still a long time away because we don't want to be old and irrelevant, because that's what society tells us we're going to be. But the thing is that perimenopause can start 2 to 12 years before menopause. And the average age of menopause is 51. So that means you could be beginning this journey in your late 30s. And if you're in your 40s, the rumblings of change are probably already starting for you. And that's okay. And it doesn't have to be a a show. That's the other thing I like to talk about a lot as well, is perimenopause and menopause. It does not have to be a horror show. Not at all. So let's move on to myth number 2. I could be here all day talking about that. I did actually talk a bit about that last episode, didn't I? About accepting feeling rubbish. I talk about it a lot because it's true. And the message doesn't seem to, well, maybe if I just keep saying it enough, it will get out there. But I feel like we're still normalizing feeling aging with feeling decrepit and in pain and being unwell and taking lots of medications, and perimenopause and menopause by virtue of people thinking that that happens when we're old is the same. So maybe that's another myth I should have thrown in today. But anyway, just remember, you're not necessarily too young for perimenopause. And if we don't ignore it, if we acknowledge that it can happen in your late 30s and 40s, we have the opportunity to influence how we feel by tweaking what we eat, drink, and do, and really supporting and nourishing our body to give it the best opportunity during this time of great change. So, myth number 2, or misconception number 2, well, my periods are still regular, so it can't be perimenopause. Yeah, I get it. Because we think menopause, we know menopause is the end of periods. So we think that perimenopause is all about that, the lengthening of your cycle and a longer time between periods. But what actually, the hormone fluctuations of perimenopause start uh, and a long time before your periods might change and before your periods get further apart. So if we think about our hormone production as like an orchestra playing together, playing a symphony, and for most of your life, your hormones, and so the instruments in the orchestra, keep that steady rhythm and they're all playing along together, creating a beautiful harmony. I know for some of you, you might not have that regularity or that regular cycle as well, but it's important for us to help support our body so we can have that for most of our life. When perimenopause begins, the pitch starts to shift. So some notes sound a bit off key, or some instruments are playing just a little bit off key. So it sounds a little bit different, but overall, it, if you tune into one of the instruments, they sound a little bit different. But overall, the symphony, the orchestra, it sounds, pretty much the same. So your periods might still be regular, but you're starting to feel a bit different. More tired, moody, overwhelmed, less patient. Maybe you're having a little bit of trouble sleeping. Maybe you've got more headaches. Those are the kind of the early perimenopause symptoms that I see in most women. So myth number 3, and this is kind of what happened to me, although my blood tests were normal. You might convince your doctor to give you blood tests, and they do them, and they're normal. Your hormone levels are normal. So hormone levels fluctuate dramatically across the day, week, the month, right? So a single blood test often doesn't tell the whole story. It's like just taking like a snapshot or one single moment, one beat in time of that symphony, the music sheet, and then assuming that's what it's all like. And it's not. It's not like that at all. And those normal ranges used by the labs are so broad, and they don't always reflect what's optimal for you. And you might have trouble convincing your doctor to give you the hormone blood test, because the gold standard for diagnosing perimenopause at this time in Australia is through symptoms. And unfortunately, age and symptoms. So that's often why we talked about myth 1. That's often why you might get told you're too young, because that age criteria, even though we know it goes for 2 to 12 years, seems to be more like that late 40s, early 50s that doctors are thinking about. That's been a bit slower to change. So, yeah, like if we're looking just at one snapshot, and I do with my clients, with my one-to-one clients in the chaos to calm method, I do extensive blood tests with them, but I always say it is just one snapshot in time. So it is great to test multiple times, but that can get expensive and that can get tricky to get your doctors to agree to if they're the ones referring you. But we do need to see that history. It is just a snapshot, one snapshot in time. It does, don't get me wrong, they can bring really useful information, especially if we look at them functionally and we're using ranges that are optimal for your health. But it is a snapshot in time. We need to take it in the context of what we know about you, your health history, what's going on for you, phase, where you're at, what stage of life you're at there, your genetics, your family health history, if that. So yeah, so you might have normal blood test, but still feel that something is not right, and you could still be in perimenopause even if those hormone tests tell you you're not. So myth number 4, it's just stress or burnout, you're a busy mum. These are easy culprits, and don't get me wrong, they are often very involved. Like I said at the start of this episode, it is the busiest phase of life. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of stressors, a lot of busyness, and that is stressful for your body, that busyness. But stress, or your stress response, your stress resilience, doesn't exist in isolation. So during perimenopause, your body produces less progesterone, and that's one of the first things to change. And progesterone is like our Zen hormone. It keeps us calm, it helps us sleep, it keeps our immune system in order, keeps your hair, skin, and nails lovely. But one of the things that it does that's really, relevant here is that it helps modulate our stress response. It gives us stress resilience. So with it, as it's declining, and its decline is quite rapid, your ability to handle stress naturally declines. So everything feels harder. You feel more overwhelmed. You feel irritated, impatient, moody. Of course, if you're getting less sleep, then basically just a full-grown toddler. But yeah, it's important to think about that. It's just writing things off as just stress or busyness is not helpful, because it makes us feel powerless. Like maybe you can't change that. Saying, "Oh, just get rid of your stressors," is not the answer, because also that feels impossible for most of us. Most of us have kids. How do we get rid of our kids? We can't. Can't sell them on eBay. That's not allowed. And why would you want to? Most of the time, when they're not bickering. I know that's not me. Thankfully, I've been feeling lately that just my younger kids bicker all the time, and it must just be me and I'm doing something wrong. But talking with my friends, I realize it's not. Anyway, addressing the root cause is really key. So not just writing it off as it's stress and busyness. Oh, well, can't change that. Or saying, I'll just get rid of some stressors, but actually supporting your body to build your stress resilience so that you can handle those stressors better in the way that you used to. So we need to nourish our nervous system and adrenal glands to help with that too. There's a lot to be done with what you eat, drink, and do to help you nourish your nervous system and your adrenal glands and address that root cause, which is that loss of progesterone, and help your body learn or better adjust or adapt to that change. Because I think that's what it's really all about in perimenopause and menopause, is helping your body better adapt and adjust to the changes. The changes are inevitable. Eventually, we're getting to the stage where we have minimal estrogen. It's not no estrogen, because our adrenal glands make some for us, and so does our fat cells as well. But it's helping our body better adapt and adjust to it, because we're a long time without them. And we managed when we were kids just fine. We didn't have estrogen and progesterone then. We can do it again, but we just have to help our body remember that it could do that. So that's really the key, addressing the root cause, what's underlying it. Yes, the hormone changes is the cause, but it's not necessarily the answer to just bolster that up with hormone therapy. You can do a lot of other stuff if hormone therapy is not suitable for you or you don't want to do it. Yeah, like I said, there's a lot you can do with what you eat, drink, and do. So if you're wondering whether perimenopause is behind how you're feeling, and I guess if you're here listening to me, you're probably thinking that, but you might not know that I have a free resource to help you. It's called the Perimenopause Decoder. You can download it. The link is in the show notes, wherever you're listening to this podcast. And it breaks down, it helps you work out whether the symptoms that you're feeling, could they be perimenopause? And then you can also pop it together, those symptoms, and see the different phases of perimenopause so that you can go, oh, all right, I'm going to be here for 5 more years or 10 more years. So it breaks down what happens in the different phases of perimenopause to help you see where you're at, how much longer to go on the roller coaster. So you can grab it in the show notes, but also the link for you is www.theperimenopausenaturopath.com.au/decoder. So thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. Is perimenopause behind how you're feeling? If you found this helpful, make sure that you follow the podcast so you don't miss future episodes. And while you're there, I would really appreciate it if you would please rate the podcast, maybe even leave a review, and let me know what you'd like to hear more about. Ratings and reviews help more women find the podcast so they have the chance to transform their perimenopause from chaos to calm. Next time, I'm going to be talking about those phases of perimenopause, what happens when, and how long it's going to take, how long till you get off that roller coaster. I do hope you'll join me then. Until then, keep transforming your perimenopause from chaos to calm.